Hey guys, we're back again for another video. In this video, we're going to be talking about a little modification that we put on the Technics 1200. Everybody knows that these things are tanks and they last forever. I got a Technics 1200. I got a set that's 20 some odd years old, still works great. The Achilles heel of the Technics 1200 is the RCA cable that comes out of the bottom. Everybody who's had a pair of these knows that every now and then one or both of these go bad and you got to open it up and solder the cable in and out of the bottom of the turntable, and it's time consuming and it's just a problem. And here's why it's a problem. David's gonna tell you.
Yeah, so this past weekend what happened was one of my RCAs went bad in the middle of the gig, so I had to go into my bag, find like a spare RCA I had, and I had to do like a little quick rig, like a little hack. Yes, it got me through the whole night, thank God, but of course I'm not going to leave it this way, but we have a solution for you where this doesn't have to happen to you.
All you got to do is permanently get rid of the wire. How do we do that? We open up the turntable, and at the bottom, right here, instead of the wire coming out, we have RCA jacks. So what we're going to do is we're going to take David's turntables and customize them the same way. So now if he's in the middle of a gig, and that ever happens again, all you got to do is unplug the RCA and plug a new RCA in. So we're going to show you how to do that today in this video. Let's go over what you're going to need to get started. RCA jacks, sheet metal, something to cut the sheet metal with, soldering iron, solder, drill gun, drill bits, wire stripper. You don't need a continuity checker, but it definitely helps to make sure you've done the job correctly. An RCA cable, an empty box. You're also going to need some all-purpose adhesive, something to keep your screws organized as you take them out the bottom of the turntable, some needle nose pliers, a small flathead screwdriver, a piece of scrap wood, and a clamp. Okay, let's get started. Lay an empty box on your working table. Take your Technics 1200 and flip it upside down, laying it on top of the cardboard box. Make sure to leave the tone arm hanging off to the side. We do this so that we can successfully work on the bottom of the turntable without damaging the tone arm. Here you have the power plug to the Technics 1200. Okay, you normally don't see this wire here. This wire was because we installed LED lights underneath the platters and pitches of this turntable. Unless you have a custom turntable, you're not going to have this wire, so we'll just pretend it's not there. And here are the hardwired RCA cables that we're going to replace today. Now what we want to do is disassemble the bottom of the Technics 1200. We're going to start by unscrewing the feet and removing all the screws off the bottom of the 1200. Then we're going to pull off the rubber base. Okay, what you're looking at here looks slightly different than what you're going to see when you take the rubber base off. All Technics 1200s come standard with this other component in the middle of the turntable. We have a specific reason why we remove this piece of the turntable, and you can watch our video on how and why we do that. Check out the link below. Anyway, whether this component is in there or not, it's not going to affect the job we're doing today. So let's just put that to the side. This plate here holds the RCA cable in place. This way, if the wire gets tugged on, it won't break the solder connections inside the turntable. We're going to remove this plate and the plastic clamps that are holding the wire in place. Once you get the plate off, you want to cut the RCA cables. We're going to repurpose these same RCA cables as the leads to the RCA jacks. So make sure you leave about 3 to 4 inches of slack to work with at the end of the cable. Because the green board that the cables are soldered to is located to the left here, when the job is complete, you're going to want the RCA jacks positioned to the right here. This way, the lead connections to the jacks don't end up touching the green board. If those two end up rubbing together or touching, it can either cause the solder to break or it could just create other issues with inside your turntable. So you definitely want them spaced apart. A Technics 1200 owner will notice that there's no grounds on this turntable. That's because this turntable has been internally grounded. We recommend that you also internally ground the turntable. You want to make sure you connect the ground wire to one or both of the negative terminals on the green board inside your Technics 1200. You do this by taking the ground wire here and make sure that you solder it to the negative connection here. The plate that comes standard in your Technics 1200 is already the correct size and it's nice and sturdy. So we're going to repurpose and use the same plate to mount the RCA Jacks to the turntable. How we're going to do that is we're going to flip it upside down and put it back on the turntable and then put the rubber base back on top of that. This is so that we can take a magic marker and mark the spots where we want the RCA Jacks to go. Remember, the RCA Jacks have to be in a position where you can take a cable and connect to the RCA Jacks, and you can take the cable on and off without it rubbing on the rubber base. So we're going to find that perfect position, and then we're going to pull it back apart so that we can drill the holes for the RCA Jacks. Next, we want to find the appropriate size drill bit to use to make the holes in the plate. You can use the lock washers that come with the RCA Jacks as a good reference as to what size drill bit you actually need. Next, we're going to go ahead and drill the holes. Like I said before, we're using this plate for stability, so we're going to repurpose the plate that came with the 1200. But we also wanted to have a nice, clean, finished look. So next, we're going to take a piece of sheet metal and trace the same exact plate. We're going to use the sheet metal to get a nice, finished look. After tracing the sheet metal, we're going to go ahead and drill the holes and then cut out the circle. You do have the option of purchasing much stronger material and making the plate from scratch. However, thicker material is going to cost more money and it's going to be a lot more difficult to work with. That's why I choose this option. If the plate is already there, why not reuse it? Next, I use some spray adhesive to glue the two plates together. Once they're dry, you can begin the assembly process. We're going to take the RCA Jacks and mount them to the plate. Voila! A quick little trick, using some super glue or Loctite on the threads will help to prevent them from backing off again in the future. Next, we're going to strip the ends of the cables and solder them to the RCA Jacks. The cables are identified on the green board inside your Technics 1200, which one is right and left and which one is positive and negative. Make sure you connect the correct wire to the correct end on your RCA Jack. Once I'm done soldering, I like to add a piece of electrical tape to the bottom of the jacks just to prevent anything from touching the contacts and messing up the signal. Then we're going to go ahead and reassemble the plate back onto the bottom of the Technics. At this point in the process, it's a good idea to make sure that your connection is solid. We can do that by using a continuity checker. You want to attach an RCA cable to the jacks, and then you want to touch one end of your continuity checker to the RCA cable and one end inside the tone arm to the contact inside your tone arm. If the numbers go to 0, that means you got a solid connection. Remember, you have to check 4 connections, the left, the right, and also the positive and negative from the left and the right. If you don't have a continuity checker, it's all right. Just do it the old school way. Finish putting the turntable back together, throw a needle on it, and test to make sure it's working. So at this point, we did do a test, and everything's working, so we're going to finish assembling the turntable. Okay, now that we're done, let's do the old school test. Let's throw a needle on and see if it works. As you can see, everything is all good. You've just successfully replaced the RCA cables with RCA Jacks on your Technics 1200. I hope our videos have been helpful to you.
And be sure to like and follow us on our Jamtex page.
And make sure to leave comments if you have any questions about the video or if you have suggestions on future videos. Thanks for watching.